Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Look Beyond the Classroom channel. So this is Adrian Cruz and welcome po sa ating live session. Today is a special webinar as this event is in collaboration with the graduate students of DLSU. And in this session, I'd like to introduce our main MC, Sir Dave Tabisola. Good afternoon, Sir Dave.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you so much for that. Good afternoon. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar titled Into the Future From Bichronous Learning to Hyflex Learning. So, my name is Dave Tabisola. I'm one of the graduate students from College of Education in De La Salle University, Manila, and I'll be your MC for this webinar. So, hello, guys. And we see that more people are still joining our session for today via StreamYard, YouTube, and Facebook. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is our pleasure to have you here this Saturday afternoon. We know that most of you are busy, and we appreciate you taking the time off your busy schedule to join us today. So, as mentioned, we are now live on Facebook page and YouTube channel of Look Beyond via StreamYard, our partner digital solutions company for this webinar. And also, a huge thanks to my classmates, Adrian, Leanne, Axel, Patty, and Janisa, who are taking care of the technology aspect of this webinar, making sure that everyone will have a seamless and awesome experience this afternoon. And for our viewers who are starting to or who just joined our session for today, again, welcome. Just a few reminders before we start our session for today. Please observe a proper decorum, and we highly encourage you to actively participate in our session by responding through the comment section of our Facebook and YouTube platforms. Okay, so I can see a lot of comments here. Hello. We have one from Thomas Earnshaw Elementary School. Hello. We also have a participant from Mariano Ponce Elementary School. Hello. Good afternoon. So, to start off this program, may we observe a moment of silence and be one in mind, body, and spirit as we ask our Almighty God for His guidance. I'd like to invite Miss Janisa Magpuso to lead the invocation.
Thank you, Dave. Now let us remember that we are in the most holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Let me be the change I want to see, to do it straight.
I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de la Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Janisa. And once again, a lovely day to everyone. So we see that there are more people who joined us today. There are additional remarks or comments on our comment section on YouTube and Facebook. We have people from PUP Santa Mesa, Chiang Kai-shek College. So shout out to you guys and welcome. We hope that you already had your siesta and enjoyed your merienda this afternoon. But if you still haven't, feel free to grab some snacks and eat while tuning in to this webinar as we venture to the future of the Philippine education system. So before we move on to the main topic of this program, let us begin with a check-in question. So our participants, we ask for your expectations from this webinar. So kindly type in the comments section and I'll be reading some of the responses. So what are you expecting from this webinar? So let us check the comment section and see if we already have responses. So just a few words will do. If you can describe it in just one word, that will be fine. Okay, so we have people from Chiang Kai-shek College. Hello. So once again, for those who just joined, welcome. And of course, we'd like to hear your thoughts, your expectations from this webinar. So kindly comment down below your expectations, and we're going to read them in a few. Okay, so we have a comment from Ina Reyes from Facebook. So she said, I'm expecting to learn a lot about the Hyflex Learning. And we also have one from Axel, learn more about Hyflex Learning. Okay. Right. So definitely we will cover those things. And I know you guys are excited about that. So thank you so much for sharing us your expectations. And at this point, may I call on our class representative, Miss Lian Zentua, to give us an overview of our event today.
Thank you, Sir Dave. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So, I'm one of the graduate students who organized this event. In our class, Online Intended Learning, we came up with this Information and Communications Technology for Education, or what we call ICT4E initiative. So, this webinar aims to improve the online teaching practices, to also prepare educators for the Hyflex and blended learning, to support learners' needs in the Hyflex and blended classroom setting, which will soon be implemented in most institutions here in the Philippines, and of course, to sustain and leverage the educational technology skills of the teachers. So there will be three main parts for this webinar. So let me give you an overview. The first one is challenges and tips in managing online classes. Next would be blended and Hyflex learning. And then the latter part is useful tools and resources. So the latter would be asynchronous because later on at the end of this webinar, we'll be launching a resource site in the form of Google site, wherein relevant resources are posted. And this platform will make the initiative sustainable, for it will be used in sharing resources and best practices, hopefully to build a community with you, educational technology enthusiasts. We truly appreciate you for being here with us, and we look forward to learning with all of you. Thank you.
All right, interesting topics. Thank you, Miss Leanne. Now that we already had a glimpse of the topics that we will cover today, let us move on to the next part of this webinar. So, of course, nothing can be more reassuring and heartwarming than affectionate words of welcome. So, to formally welcome us this afternoon, let us lend our ears to our dear Educational Technology Program Advisor from Department of Educational Leadership and Management and Director of Academic Support for Instructional Services and Technology in De La Salle University, Manila. Everyone, let's all welcome Dr. Jasper Alantaga as he gives his opening remarks.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dave, for the introductions. Okay, so on behalf of De La Salle University, Manila, and the Brother Andrew Gonzalez College of Education, I would like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's event. Okay, so let me just share a little something uh, regarding how this particular initiative was conceptualized. Okay, so as Lian mentioned earlier, this is an outcome for the course ETD 723, which is Online and Blended Learning. Okay, it's one of the courses under the MA Educational Technology program of the university. And my students, most of them, they've been under me before. So we've talked a lot about how education has been redefined in the during the pandemic. Okay, and when we were talking about the course during week number one, we had a discussion on how can we really focus on the two crucial ELGAs in the university. Okay, so there are five all in all, but for the course, we wanted to really zone into the fourth expected Lasallian graduate attribute, which is to be service-driven citizens, and the fifth one, which is to become innovator and seeker of improvement. Okay, and with that, we had our planning process and ultimately end up with a class decision to implement a blended and online learning initiative. So this was a special class, and this is our special project, a class project for that particular course. Okay. When we had our discussions during the term, one thing I realized is that I was already preaching to the choir. Okay, because my students are already champions of various basic education and higher education institutions. So some of them are the point person, even the trainers for their institutions. Okay, so and it serves as a fruitful ground for discussion. Okay, but all the more reason to justify that we have to give back and share again our knowledge and thoughts, especially on what will be the next normal, okay, or what can possibly be the next normal. And this challenge was accepted by the students. This webinar is the concrete output of their work. Okay, so aptly entitled Into the Future, from Bichronous Online Learning to Hyflex Learning, we had our conversations in class of what the future might look like. Okay, because we're still in that roadmap and we still don't know uh, what will be the final form and how long that form will stick. Okay, but in our class discussions, we identified flexible learning would definitely be one of the core aspects of that new normal. Okay, so teachers and institutions should really start looking at ICT tools, both as a pedagogy enabling tool and also as a diversity accommodation tool. So, and then of course, ultimately, the new normal would hopefully be a better normal than what we had before the pandemic. So let me express my gratitude to our speakers this afternoon, Sir Ian Mark Arevalo and Miss Maris Ortega. I'm sure they will be sharing with you guys their thoughts on our topic. Okay, and I hope that this will also spark critical reflection, not just on your teaching practices, but also on how your institution can position itself in the new digital ecosystem that may arise. So cheers to EDT 723M team, and have a great afternoon ahead, everyone.
All right. So thank you so much for that warm welcome, Sir Jasper. Your words will surely remain closely in our minds and heart. And I'm sure that everyone is excited to hear from our guest speakers for today. At this juncture, may we call on Mr. Axel Retanan to introduce our first speaker for today. Go ahead, Axel.
All right, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. So, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of us in many different ways. It forced us to do things we thought we couldn't, and eventually learned our ways to live with the situation. Aside from all the negative things, it also brought the best in us. The pandemic forced us to think of creative ways to continue living our lives. Educational institutions were not an exception. Schools from all over the world have also been impacted, and administrators had to think of other ways so our students can still continue their studies. Hence, we implement Bichronous online learning. The first year of implementation wasn't easy for most of our teachers because not all of them are prepared. In fact, no one was ready. We continue to look for ways on how to improve our practices. So, this afternoon, we will be listening to some of the challenges our teachers are facing in managing online classes and how to mitigate them through innovative strategies. Our first speaker is the head of community and extension office and an associate of IB student life in Chiang Kai-shek College. Let us give our virtual round of applause to Mr. Ian Mark Aravalo. Hello, Sir Ian.
Hi everyone, can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
All right. Hello, dear teachers. May I request everyone to please use the comment section to please state your name or not your name anymore, but the location. Where are you from? So just use the chat box or the comment section so that I can know and I can give a shout out for the effort of being here today. Thank you so much for being here. Now, today's a great day to talk about stories. Stories, not just opportunities, but also to be realistic challenges during this so called new normal in education. I entitled my talk as The Other Side of the Screen. Be aware that this talk is based from my experience, from my friends, and from my colleagues' experience in the private sector of education. So let's start. So kindly use again the comment section to comment your location so that I can give a shout out. Okay? All right. So why are you here? It's Saturday, my gosh. But you choose to stay with us and join us. And I am very, very thankful for attending this session. And I'm a kind of person who believes that everything happens for a reason. And I have here two people to support that claim. The first one is James Steffera. He always come on time and before time sa kanyang work. And the second one is we have Crystal Brown Tarum. Um, CEO of Crystal Clear Communication. James Efrak was running unusually late. Bigla siyang na late, nasira yung kanyang train na sinasakyan. And Crystal wasn't able to wake up early because nag-break sila ng kanyang boyfriend. Both of them are working in the same building and the same place, which is the Twin Tower. And that day was September 11. Now, what am I saying here? Whatever happening to you, whatever challenges you're facing right now, there is a reason for that. And why are you here? There is also a reason for that. Let's just chill, relax, and just listen to one another as we share stories of opportunities and challenges in this new normal. All right. So, here are our targets for today. The first one is we're going to seek answers or experiences on the challenges, the things that we need to celebrate, in this new normal in education. The second one is there a change in the role of educator in an online setup? So let's try to find out. Let's start with my first part of the presentation. I call this the tale of two teachers. From this, we're going to talk about the journey of stories. These teachers are my first year of teaching, both in face-to-face during 2012, nalaman niyo tuloy yung year ko, and my first year of teaching in an online situation, 2020. Now, as we all know that this pandemic is a big thing, not just changing economic and social, but also the education aspect. Now, what I want you guys to do, dear teachers, is to chat in the chat box or give comment on what are those changes that happened, not just to me, but also to you during this pandemic, during this so called new normal, right? So keep those comment coming in, right? I can see a lot of comments. Thank you so much for those comments, right? So I know there's a lot of differences, not just my figure. Alam na natin yun yung figure ko. Pero, despite those differences, like, they're students, we use laptops, technologies, may ring light pa and everything. We can say that there are things that will not change in the field of teaching. That even if it's face-to-face or online, we still have one goal. The same teacher, the same purpose. And that is to touch lives, to transform lives, and even to facilitate learning. We're just in a different modality, different setup. Way back then, as we all know, um, teachers played a lot of roles. There are teachers who are lecturer, wherein the teachers just stand, deliver information, the student listen and take down notes, as if the teachers has the monopoly of knowledge, right? Some teachers tend to become instructor, wherein teacher drives the content and there are mini lessons and students are somehow guided, but independence is encouraged, is highly encouraged. Now, we keep on hearing this word, being a facilitator, wherein both the teacher and the students drive the content, wherein the teacher tries to check, evaluate if the information from the kids, from the students, are accurate. The students work in small groups to gain instruction and they do have a choice. Lastly, and the most ideal one, is teacher coach. We're in. The teachers adjust, adapt, and develop the teaching style based from the learning style of the students. With that, the students tend to work on different tasks basing from their capability and weaknesses. So it may sound ideal, but I know for a fact that we're trying our very best to become facilitator and even a coach. Right? Can I get a heart sign there if you're really doing your best to become facilitator and coach? All right. To become an educator, you need to know the following. The first one, as you all know, is we know the content. During our undergraduate days, we were bombarded with a lot of content, right? My gosh, and even those contents when we became teachers are not applicable anymore because as we all know, contents do update. It develops. It can change, right? And that's why if you're a teacher, you should never stop learning. And when we say learning, it's not just limited to reading. Experience, do travel, do watch videos, do watch vlogs. So there's a lot of ways for us to keep on learning. Once you are a teacher, my dear colleagues, you will never stop learning. And you will never stop becoming a learner. After you know the content, a great teacher tries to know the student. the weaknesses, the strength, the abilities, right? So that we can adjust our lesson. We can adjust and go to their interests and base our lesson to their interests so that the students will be jived in our discussion. The third one is this: in the online situation, knowing the content and knowing the students is not enough. Rather, you also need to know the place, the context. I remember that I like students who are, opening their cameras and everything, unmuting their microphone. I have this one student doesn't even want to unmute rather, and open the cam. And then I asked that person to stay. Then I realized na marami pala siyang kasabay na nag-aaral din. So, hindi siya confident enough to, to open the cam and to unmute. And is that the fault of the kid? No, right? So we will adjust. We will adjust to that kid. Knowing the context is also knowing the place in the sense that are the parents supporting the kids? What's the status of the kid? Now we have here friends from the public school, and I know for a fact that some of the kids are really having a hard time, both financially, emotionally, with this online situation. And knowing the place, the context is very important. If you agree, you can click the heart button, right, to show that you agree with our statements. Thank you so much. That is why, in order for you to know the place, we need to have a listening heart. Let's talk about listening first. We all know that the difference about hearing and listening is that hearing is recognition of sound. But when we say listen, or when we say you are listening, it's not just recognition of sound, but there is comprehension. There is emotion involved. Everybody in this world want to talk, but nobody wants to listen. And that is the problem. We educators, um, we should allow our kids to feel that we are willing to listen to them. You can never know, mga kapatid, na malay mo, ikaw lang talaga ang talaga nag-offer sa bata na yan na makikinig ka sa kanya. Because at the end of the day, gusto natin at alam natin ang pakiramdam na may nakikinig sa atin. Let this be a reminder from Dr. Kasimbing that the heart of education is the education of the heart. No matter how smart the student is, colleagues, he or she will forget the national hero, the formulas, the laws of motion, economics, people, scientists. But what is important and what is the greatest test of learning is the morality, the values. I do believe personally that we are all values teachers. That aside from transmitting knowledge or passing knowledge, facilitating knowledge and information, our task as well is to touch the lives and to build this kid in a sense that there's a morally upright um, person or individual. That is why every time I start my class, I always start with this. Kumusta ang araw mo? Medyo corny. I do this with my college students and I'm very touched with them kasi hindi ko inakala na when I saw my evaluation, ito yung naging highlight. Na imbis na maging highlight yung mga strategies ko, they did not remember that. But what they remembered is you being a caring teacher, you being there, the feeling that you always check on them. And that's very important as an educator. Remember that it's not just a job, it's a profession. It's the noblest profession, mga kapatid. Now let's move on to the second part of my task. It's the journey of true challenges. And I want to use Heidelin Diaz. We're so hyped with Heidelin Diaz winning our first gold in Olympics. We're in a male-dominated sport. Babae ang nagbigay sa atin ng ginto. Let's make use of Heidi Diaz and weightlifters as our point of comparison for today. I compare Heidelin as the teacher, and the dumbbell or the barbell that she's holding are the students. Every time we try to lift them up, there is sacrifice from us, physical, emotional, and even our time. And that's what we do. We lift them up. There's a lot of efforts, there's a lot of trials, right? And sometimes it's painful. Adding to that weight, another kilogram, somehow, sometimes the parents, right? The administration of the school, even the dep ed, the community as well, adding pressure to the educators, to the teachers. And of course, this COVID 19. Despite that, despite that pressure, we can say that we are lifting the students and we are remaining that smile. We remain to smile. There's a happiness within us that despite the hardship, we're still trying our best to lift our students up. Ganon tayo mga guro. Sabi nga sa pagtuturo, nakakapagod. Pwedeng mapagod, pero bawal sumuko. Ganon ang guro. Now, there are a lot of ways of learning ngayong panahong ito, especially now that we have this pandemic. Though traditionally, we can say na si student learn from the teacher through the classroom, and then the students, they also get to learn from their kapwa students through collaboration. Now, as we can see, we teachers also learn from them, right? Technologies and lahat ng mga bagay na hindi natin natututunan. Ako, I'll admit, medyo bata pa naman po ako, pero may mga technology na akong hindi nalalaman. At itong mga batang ito, they will really help you. Gone are the days, mga kapatid, na it's so hard for us to admit that we don't know something. Remember that being a teacher requires also humility. It's okay to say, I don't know. Dati naalala ko, nakakahiyang magsabi na may nagtanong sa'yo tapos hindi mo masagot. So anong gagawin natin? Yung ibang teacher, yung iba lang, pwedeng magalit, ganun mag-walk out pa yung iba. I remember, pero hindi eh. Ngayon iba na. It's okay to say na hindi mo alam. It's okay to say na, let's try to research that next time. We'll go back to you. Something like that. Mas lalong bumibilib yung mga bata sa atin na kaya natin i-admit na hindi natin alam yung isang bagay. The fourth one is this, student to technology. Especially now. At ang masama, technology is so open that kahit na ano ma-access nila, pornographiya, kung ano mga nakakatakot na mga websites, can be dangerous to the students. But they do learn. Remember that. Mga bata ngayon, hindi na nagpapatahimik sa kanila, pacifier, tablet na. Number 5 is that students also learn to the community, the values of the community, the culture of the community. They get to learn that. At the end of the day, a lot of ways of learning, pero it will all go back to the teacher. We need to check, to analyze, and to evaluate if these learnings from the different sources are legit, correct, accurate, and not fake. That's also our task, mga kapatid. Now, noon pa man, we all know that there's a lot of gaps na kahit face-to-face pa. Facilities, ratio student and teacher, lalo na ngayon. The United Nations, especially UNESCO, came up with a lot of gaps. The first gap is technology gap. I am teaching in the private institution and I realize also that there are students that is experiencing technology gap. na kung saan, mga kapatid, apat silang magkakapatid, they cannot afford to buy four laptops at the same time. That's why yung isang estudyante pwedeng tablet ang gamit or iPad ang gamit. Iba eh. Hindi lang talaga to na yung hirap was not just experienced by the public sector but also with the private education sector. The second one is economic gap. Of course, even though it's online, you still need to pay tuition fee. You still need to buy resources such as requirements. A lot of students from the private schools went to the public school. And ang bilis na parang nagkaroon ng diaspora, ng exodus ng mga estudyante, making some private schools close because of that scenario. The third one is the digital gap. And when we say digital gap, papasok dito sa skills. It was alarming to realize that some of the students that we have in the Philippines, they don't even know how to use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, unlike any other countries or students in other countries, right? Ganun yung digital gap natin. Even Wi-Fi connection, nakita natin, na-realize natin that Wi-Fi is not just for social media, but also for education. And hindi magandang Wi-Fi natin. All this gap, these three gaps, contributed to the learning gaps of the kids. And those three gaps as well defeat the purpose of universality of education. That when we say universality of education, dapat education is for all, regardless you're poor and you're rich. But as we all know, what's happening? Learning gap is present. That's why a lot of students are pushing to go face to face. A lot of parents are saying, kami na yung gumagawa ng module. A lot of parents are saying na gusto na namin papasukin yung mga bata. Not because ayaw nilang alagaan yung mga anak nila, but because they experience the following gaps. They experience the following challenges. And that is the problem here. Now, another problem from the part of the teacher is this. This image is a very powerful image. Is when we talk about the kinds of learner. The exam in this image is to climb that tree. There's a bird, you can just fly. Monkey can do it. Penguin, elephant, seal, I don't think so. It will be a hard time for them. The dog can climb somehow, but the fish, I don't know how. Sometimes our students are like these animals. There are students who are like a bird. They can finish the project, but with a different style. Some students are like the monkey. They can really follow the direction and finish the task. Some of our students are like elephant. They seem so relaxed, chill, but they're having a hard time doing it. The worst it, the worst is some of our students are like the goldfish. They will just stop, not submit, or not do anything. The worst is they will just drop. At the end of the day, a reminder for each and everyone, let us do differentiation. And when we do differentiation, the teachers are adjusting to the needs, to the abilities of the kids. I remember my nephew, um, the teacher was asking him to create a TikTok video, and that kid was not using TikTok. And that's the problem. No? So what's my suggestion for this? Let's do differentiation. One example of differentiation is the Tic Tac Toe choice board. We allow the students to choose. We allow the students to pick. But it should still target the same purpose, which is to create like a book report. So you have here 9 choices for you to pick, right? When you allow the kids to choose, when you allow the kids to decide on what to do, you make them feel that what they're doing is meaningful. You involve them. Sometimes kasi, gusto ko magpa-TikTok kasi yun ang uso. Remember that not all of the kids are doing TikTok. Gusto ko magpa-post sa Facebook. Remember that not all kids are doing Facebook. So, you give them choices. You give them opportunities to hone their skills. Maybe you can do someone singing, dancing, writing, something like that to hone their strength, to hone their abilities. Do differentiation. Another factor to consider, dear colleagues, is the generation. O sige, magkakaalaman na tayo dito. Paki-type sa comment section sa ating mga viewers. Hello viewers, ang inyong generation name. Dito na magkakaalaman. Our generation now is this, Generation Alpha. And when we say Generation Alpha, they are, based from Joe Pinsker, the best educated, most technologically immersed. I will agree to that. Super immersed. Wealthiest, mhm, spend some or all of their childhood living in arrangement without both of their biological parents. And that's true, right? So imagine, this Gen Alpha, ako po ay nasa Gen, di ako Gen Z, nasa Millennial or Generation Y. Um, this Gen Alpha are so technologically immersed. And what if yung pinapagawa natin, hindi sila maka-jive? Kasi nga ang kanilang mundo ay umiko sa teknolohiya. We cannot say na, ako ang teacher, they need to adjust. No. A reminder, dear colleagues, that we are, yes, we are rock stars. Pero the true stars are our students. Sila ang bida ng kwentong ito. No? It's ideal. It's kind of unfair to say that we will adjust to them, especially to their needs. Another challenge I think that I encountered during this pandemic is, ayan po, sige po, chat lang po kayo ng mga generations nyo. Ayun. Hello po ulit sa ating mga viewers sa Manila, sa Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Is this depression? One good thing about this pandemic is that na-emphasize yung salitang mental health. Dear teachers, it's not just our students who are suffering from mental health or problems or depression. Tayo din. Tandaan nyo yun. Remember, you cannot give what you do not have. You need also to remain sane, calmado. Try to look for something that will help you calm down. And that's very important. Comfort food, go. Pero I always tell this to my students, their teachers, na our goal is not just to be happy, but also to be healthy. So to age, dagdagan ko pa, but also to be holy. Tandaan natin mga kapatid na hindi pala, ngayong pandemya, hindi pala siya payamanan, no? Patatagan at pasayahan ng buhay. And you cannot tell the kids na wag ka ma-depress, wag ganito, if you yourself is experiencing that, right? Yes, it takes one to know one, pero you need to be okay to say to that person that it's also okay, right? Parang you need to help yourself first before you help others. What I do again, I just want to share this, is I do essential agreement. As an AP teacher, what I call is classroom constitution. Usually what we do as teachers, diba, we do this. This is the rule of my class. So blah, 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 blah. So what I do is I allow the kids to suggest laws. I will just turn off my camera. And once I turn off my camera, they will speak. Mag-uusap-usap sila. And then, agreement siya because si teacher at si student, mag-debate sila ng konti. They need to justify bakit yun ang rule. Why is this important? It's important because we need to involve the kids to the learning engagement. Now, the glass of opportunity. Sabi nila, let's be optimistic, half full, half empty, pessimist, but we need to be realistic and we need to be thankful that we are still alive. Celebrate all the success in teaching, but of course, let us still do something for the challenges. I love this word. This is my favorite Japanese word. I call this this word is ikigai. Your purpose in life, your meaning, your worth. Write it in your notebook. And kapag napapagod ka, tingnan mo siya. You being a teacher right now and attending here, that's your ikigai. That you want to transform the lives of the kids. You want to become a better educator. Congratulations, teachers. My sister bought a coffee maker. Yung coffee maker na yun, super excited ako. Though I don't drink coffee. Pili-pili ako. Excited ako yung mga cup yung mga pinapasok siya. Hindi ko alam. So, nung inon ko na siya, na-stress ako kasi natapon siya. Kasi, I forgot the cup. Teachers, a reminder, do not forget the cup. Do not forget the most important thing in education, and that is the heart. Again, the heart of education is the education of the heart. We have now hard skills, soft skills, communication. Everybody, everybody can be fluent, but few can know really how to communicate well. Flexibility. This is a test of flexibility. Leadership, teamwork, and time management. Soft is the new hard. Reminder, before, we bring the kids to school, but now we bring the school to kids. Let's be BDO. We need to find ways on how are we going to engage these kids to love learning again. My favorite professor, Dr. Corazon Sigua from the Philippine Normal University, once said, the teaching style of the teacher must adjust to the learning style of the student. We are not the bida. Rather, it's a reminder for all of us that the kids are the star of the classroom. These are some application that I would just like to share. Padlet, ManagePack, Kahoot, Jumpboard, um, Mentimeter. So these are very helpful. These are free, so you can access them, that you can use to, make your lessons more engaging. Remember that when you engage the kids, they learn more. I also do this. Like for instance, the first picture you can see there, I asked them to be like ambassador for the day. We cannot wear costume, so sa virtual background na lang. I invite some people para hindi naman ikaw ang laging nagsasalita. Para may source din. You know, ibang tao naman. And it's good because you will realize na may iba pa lang mas maganda pang idea. These are college students below. You can see there. Just for fun. Diba? Let's make our teaching or the experience of the kids in joining your class meaningful and exciting. My learning so far is that digital skills are very important, mga kapatid. Totoo. This is a life skill, no? And always upgrade yourself. Do not be satisfied that Microsoft Word or PPT. Now PPT, Canva na, may uso na, right? This is a life skill. Allow the kids not just to be required to learn, but let them become joyful learners. No? That when they become joyful learners, mga kapatid, they will love learning. Sabi nila, kapag daw ang estudyante, paborito niya ang subject mo, it's not because of the subject. It's because of you. It's because of you. Remember that. Quality over quantity. Hindi pala ito paramihan ng natutunan. Kung gaano mo tinutukan yung isang bagay. And focus on the skills. Lifelong skills. Localization. Apply it to real life situation from global and to the local setup. Before I end my talk, I'd just like to share my takeaways. When you teach, you sacrifice. Sabi ni Napoleon Bonaparte, leaders are like meteors meant to burn in order to light the world. Let me rephrase that. Teachers are like meteors meant to burn in order to light the world. You want to teach? It's full of sacrifices. Sharing versus giving. When you share, I have a piece of paper, hati tayo. But when you give, sometimes wala kang tinitira sa sarili mo. And that's also teaching. When you know how to teach, you should learn how to give. Because when we teach, kahit sa sarili mong bulsa yung gastos, ganun na eh. That's why I admire the public school teachers, and a lot of some private school teachers are also doing that. No, the sacrifice, the giving, and of course, my favorite priest, Father Orbos, always tell this: focus on the mission, not in the commission and consummation. If you focus on the stressful part of teaching, may stress ka lang. But focus on the beauty of this noblest profession, that you have a mission, not just to teach or to give information, but to transform lives. You don't need to be perfect to inspire. Remember that. Let people get inspired by how you deal with your imperfection. Dear teachers, it's so nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much. I am Ian Mark Arevalo, and please do not forget the cup. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful sharing, Sir Ian. It's like I attended a retreat session. There's a lot of realizations, and I'm sure our viewers also picked up a lot of great things during your talk. And before we move on to the next speaker, if our viewers have questions, this is the perfect opportunity for us to raise them so that Sir Ian can answer your questions. So if you do, kindly let us know through the comment section, and I'm sure that Sir Ian will be delighted to answer them. And while waiting for the questions to come in, I'll go first. I'll share my takeaways from the session. You know what, Sir Ian? I like the first thing that you said on set of your talk, that everything happens for a reason, and that we just should enjoy the journey and learn from the experiences. And I'm sure that your words of inspiration and wisdom will surely keep us going as we venture to the future of teaching and learning. And how about my classmates? What are your thoughts about Sir Ian's sharing for today? Yes, Miss Leanne and Sir Adrian?
Hello there. Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Sir Ian. That was very inspiring po. And also you mentioned about the different roles that teachers would play. Well, I also have a question. So while waiting for the audience's question, maybe I can ask, because there would be really times that, with all these several roles that the teacher plays, and on top of that, we also have personal concerns, our roles in the family, with our friends. Do you have any concrete steps on like how to deal with this and how to balance everything, all the roles that we're playing in our lives?
Um, what I know is that what I do apply to myself is that number one, aside from being a teacher, I am also a son to my mother, a leader in the community. You always need to know that your profession as a teacher should apply to all. Your morality as a teacher should apply in the community. Your being a teacher should also apply in the family. Now, in the classroom, having said that sometimes we do have personal problems, hindi maiwasan yun. Tao tayo. Teacher ka, pero tao ka. Tandaan natin yun. What I do is that before I enter the classroom, especially during the face-to-face, I don't know ha, pero I really pause muna. Hihinga ako ng malalim, and then mag smile talaga ako. Why? There is what we call vicious and virtuous cycle. Kapag mainit ang ulo ko at pinagalitan ko yung isang estudyante na yon, the cycle of hatred continues. Maaring pag-uwi niya, inaway niya yung kapatid niya, inaway yung nanay niya, and the cycle continues. But then again, like this COVID, kindness can spread. That every time that you will go to the classroom, hahanapin ng bata, they're excited. It's because it's an opportunity for them to be relaxed. I remember a college student, sabi ko sa kanya, oh, di ba meron kang gagawin kasi nagpaalam yung buong klase niya. Sabi niya, sir, gusto ko pong pumasok kasi every time na pumapasok ko, nare-relax ako. Dapat ganon. That it applies also as a tao that every time people will see you, you ask yourself, ano yung naiisip nila sa'yo? Are you the cause of stress? Or you help them to distress? Something like that. And for me, my dear, no, as an educator, gaya ng sinabi ko, dapat lagi natin tatandaan, hindi dapat nakakawala yon sa atin. There is that expectation from the community, though unfair. Expectations are unfair, pero pinasok natin to eh. Ganun yung tiwala ng lipunan sa isang guro.
Thank you for that, Sir Ian. I really admire your dedication and passion to teach po. And I will never forget that line you mentioned a while ago. Pwedeng mapagod, pero bawal sumuko. So, kaya natin po to teacher. So, thank you for that po. How about the others po? Maybe you can share din po, Sir Axel.
All right, thank you, Miss Lian. And again, once again, thank you so much, Sir Ian, for giving us like super comprehensive discussion of the challenges. And I realized na talagang sobrang itong itong teaching talaga, it's like the noblest profession of like lahat
Yes.
kailangan nating ibigay, we sacrifice, we give,
Yes.
lahat po talaga. And we always take into consideration that students are different from one another. Kaya po
Correct,
sobrang
correct.
gustong-gusto ko talaga yung sinabi niyo po na we should always let our students choose. Okay, kasi yun talaga po yung makakapag-boost ng confidence nila eh. And yun yung
Mahirap
hanap
yun,
natin sa
Axel, to
class.
be honest. That's kinda ideal. Lalo kapag ang estudyante
Mm,
mo marami, di ba? Pero dun papasok yung passion mo to teach. Dun papasok yung love mo for the kids. Kasi di ba,
correct.
kapag mahal mo yung ginagawa mo, mag-e-effort ka.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. Mag-e-effort ka talaga, sir. Sobrang effort ng mga teachers natin. Kaya sa lahat po ng teachers na nanonood sa atin ngayon, sa Facebook, sa YouTube, sobrang saludo po ako sa ating lahat. Thank you, Sir
Yes.
Ian.
Thank you
Bossy.
so much.
All right. So thank you so much, classmates and Sir Ian, for answering the questions and for sharing a lot of good stuff for today. So now let us check the comment section for any clarifications or questions for Sir Ian. So I can see a lot of comments about them being thankful for Sir Ian for all the things that he shared. We have also JP here, JP Filbert, who says, "What a very informative and insightful presentation." Sir Ian, congratulations. And we have a comment from Gina Atencio. So she said, "I love your message. You don't need to be perfect to inspire others." I like that because you just really have to be yourself and you have to, put others, especially your students, for anything else. And Gina also said that I won't forget the cup. Yes, do not forget the cup. Okay, so I
Um,
think that's it. Yes, Adrian.
Ako, mag-add lang ako, no? Kasi, like, just what Sir Ian said kanina, merong mga ways to engaging students, no? Strategies for teachers, like differentiation, lalo na ngayong pandemic. Pero, ang ganda nung session na to, I really appreciate yung talk ni Sir Ian because most of us teachers are really focused with all the tools that we need to learn etong mga recommended apps, no, we're all focused with these. Pero tama naman, kasama naman kasi yon. Pero baka nalilimutan natin yung passion natin, why we really want to teach. And if we are so focused dun sa mga tools, no, baka malimutan natin yung pinaka-intention or yung pinaka-goal natin as teachers. And the other one also, as teachers, lagi ko ito din binabanggit, we don't really have to be tech experts, no? We really have to make sure lang na we stick with our learning objectives, no? Ito yung priority natin, and then we just choose the tools na kakailanganin natin for the specific lessons. Kasi we might be overwhelmed. Ang daming tools, di ko na alam kung anong apps ang dapat kong gamitin. No? So, um, ang ganda ng session because na balik tayo ulit ni Sir Ian doon sa yung purpose natin, and na dapat we stick, no, to that pa din, and we don't forget the heart, no. Ayun po.
Hello,
Thank you, Sir Ian. Mm-mm.
ako naman,
Yes, Janisa.
Sir Adrian. Again, thank you again, Sir Ian, for the inspiring talk. And what I appreciated from your discussion is how you presented how to be a caring teacher, and it's by knowing your students and their background also. And it is important to know those things because it would be helpful for us teachers to have a harmonious relationship with them, our students. And right now, during this pandemic, it's really hard to communicate with our students because we only see them on our screen and through their work. So I think the kamustahan with our students from time to time would be a great way for us to know them beyond the screen. So thank you again, Sir Ian, for your inspiring talk.
All right. So thank you so much, Janisa and Adrian, for sharing your insights. And again, thank you, Sir Ian, for answering all of our questions. At this point, we will have a 5 minute health break. So we'd like to request for everyone to, stand, stretch, or rest your eyes for a while and stay tuned. And we'll see you after our short break. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed that 5 minute break. And I'm also hoping that everyone is already back in front of your screens as we continue with our webinar today. So let's just have a quick check in before we move on to our next guest speaker. So we all know that some schools here in the Philippines are already in the planning stage of bringing back face-to-face classes, right? It's just really so unfortunate that some of the plans were put on hold because of the recent surge in pandemic. So we would like to ask you, aside from your friends and maybe your crushes, so what are the things that you are looking forward to the most in the face-to-face classes? So kindly type in the comment section and I'll be reading some of the responses. Okay, so we have additional comments here from Sir Ian's sharing. So again, what are the things that you are looking forward to when we bring back the face-to-face classes? So if you have things in mind, comment down below on our Facebook and YouTube channels. So Lian said, I look forward to seeing the students. Yes, of course. We're excited to see them again face to face, greet them face to face, and share our insights and knowledge. All right, so I guess you can just type it in later if you think of one. And moving on to our next speaker. So, again, we are now on the last stretch of our webinar. And we all know that you are excited to hear from our last speaker for today. So without further ado, may we call on Miss Lian Zantua to introduce our lovely speaker.
Once again, good afternoon, everyone. So, one of the most talked about topics in the Philippine education system during these unprecedented times is the implementation of blended and Hyflex learning approach. Today, we will be joined by a fellow Lasallian, a good friend of mine, and a science and math educator from the KPIS International School in Bangkok to talk about her experiences in the blended and Hyflex classroom setting. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Thailand, that's all welcome, Miss Maris Ortega.
Hello, everybody. Good
Hello.
afternoon. Am I clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Um, so yeah, it's nice to see everyone's comments, and yeah, I agree with you. It is a heartfelt session with Sir Ian a while ago, and so I have here in front of you, moving forward, Hyflex blended learning and teaching at the time of pandemic. So I am Marie Ortega. I am also, of course, I'm a Filipino, and I have been teaching in Thailand for just almost a year now. And um, I'm here to share with you my experiences and all of the things that I am continuously learning as of now as we move on to Hyflex and blended learning. So before I go to the nitty-gritty nung pag-uusapan natin ngayon, can you share in the comment section how are you feeling? What are you feeling thinking about Hyflex learning or blended learning? For sure there are some teachers who feel positively, or there are some teachers who might feel anxious about it, and all of those are valid. Can you share it in the comment section of wherever you're watching this from? What are you feeling now that your school might be looking forward to high flex or blended learning? So I will go over through that later. Thank you very much. So for today, I will walk you through what is it about? What really is high flex and blended learning? And gaano siya kaiba sa kung ano yung ginagawa ninyo o natin when we were doing online learning. And we are gonna talk about its structure, how we do it, based on my experience and some of the instructions and strategies that I do and my fellow colleagues do in my school as well. And of course, everything, all of this, everything that we are doing, at the end of the day, there should be reflection. So we are going to look into its challenges and, of course, on the bright side, what's the good thing about it. So before I move on to that, I'll just have a little disclaimer po para sa inyo. I am not an expert at all about this, and I'm in the same boat as you. We are still learning as we go through the Hyflex and blended learning, and it's not yet proven in studies how effective this is with the students. And with that, I just want to emphasize that everything that I will be sharing with you, the information, my experience, is all because of how we are doing it in my school. And I also want to emphasize that it does not reflect, how all of the schools in Thailand function. Because for sure, there are different structures per school in the same way in the Philippines. And of course, just like how you do it in the Philippines, we follow protocols from Ministry of Education and Public Health. Okay, so without further ado, so maybe we can go now to the nitty gritty of it. I saw some of you, and I also saw in one of the survey, some of you have the idea that, oh, it means that it's a combination of module and then online. Some of you say that it's like a flipped classroom. But what is it really about? So when we talk about Hyflex learning, it combines elements of both online and classroom-based learning. In other words, teachers teach students who are both on-site and online at the same time. So you can now, put yourself into that imagination and into that situation that, how am I gonna do that? Paano mangyayari yun? I'm gonna teach students who are on campus, and I'm also gonna teach students who are at home. How are we gonna do that? So I'm gonna walk you through how we do it. And when we talk about blended learning, it's not really about the type of medium that you use or the type of materials that you use for the students, but rather, um, when we talk about blended, we are talking about a combination of face-to-face and online instruction. So what does it mean? There is a certain schedule for face-to-face, and there's also a certain schedule for online instruction. Um, in other countries, like in Netherlands, they have already have done blended learning, but this is because of open universities. So they have certain structures for blended learning. But it is just now that mostly the countries, especially here in Asia, is trying to adapt blended learning. So don't worry, I'll walk you through that and how we do blended learning. So let's go to the structure. When we talk about Hyflex and blended learning, everything that we do, it always has a context. It always has a purpose. And now the context is the pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. So I want you to understand first the context before I discuss to you how we do Hyflex and blended learning. Um, just like what I mentioned, meron din po kaming Ministry of Education and Ministry of Public Health here in Thailand. And there's a high surge as well of COVID-19 cases here for the past few months. But around November, around October, the Ministry of Education somehow gave a go signal already to schools to start planning on how they are gonna um, teach the students or how are they gonna come back to campus. And these are the standards or protocols that they expect from the schools, just so you understand the context. So they said it should be 50% of school population. of course, hindi naman po sikreto sa atin na we need, we need certain protocols for health and social distancing and all those things. Um, there's also a clause that there should be no shared space with kindergarten and grade school students at the same time, because we know that they don't have yet available vaccination during the time for these kids. And they said that it should be only at most 20 students per classroom. So these are just some of the protocols. And another one, since we're in the middle of the pandemic, one of the protocol that we have to follow is testing. So here, um, we have already accredited and approved ATK testing kits that we can do at home. So what we do before we come to school, we test first, we send our result, and then before we enter the school, they're gonna check it, and then that's when you can um, enter the school. And it has to be considered in terms of the vaccination rate of the teachers, staffs, and students. So during that time, vaccination is continuously rolling out to our middle school and high school students. And the teachers is 100% vaccinated already. Um, and officially, November 8th, 2021, that is the first day of the launch of the Hyflex and blended learning. So what I want to emphasize is we also just started it. And this information that I will share with you is my learnings and my experience for the past few months that we are doing Hyflex and blended learning. Because in the year 2020, Thailand did a full blown face to face because they have a really small number of cases. But come 2021, there's a large surge of COVID cases. So therefore, they introduced to us to Hyflex and blended learning. So since there are different protocols that we need to follow, schools need to adjust to it. So therefore, there is a blended learning schedule that we follow. Again, when we say blended learning, there are schedules or days or weeks that students will be online, and there are schedules that students will be on site or on campus, so that we can follow the 50% population protocol. So I'm sharing this with you. This is really our schedule. So this is our blended learning schedule. So this is for middle school and high school. For grade school, they also have a certain blended learning schedule. So if you see there, per week, there is a designated grade level. So grades 9 to 12, and then the next week's 6 to 8. So what does it mean? It means that for that certain week that the grade level, grades 9, 10, and 11 and 12 are on campus, the grades 6, 7, and 8 are learning online, and vice versa. So this is somehow the solution that the administrators, with the suggestions of the teachers, came about so that we can follow the protocol of maintaining only a 50% of the population of the school. Okay. So aside from that, another adjustment that we did is in terms of the scheduling, the daily schedule of the students. If we have administrators here or if we have lead teachers here, I hope that you can get a little bit of ideas so that you can help your school plan as well for Hyflex and blended learning. So this is another adjustment that we did so that we can cater to the reality that we have now. Um, we only have 4 blocks. So what does it mean? The students only have 4 subjects per day from Monday to Thursday. However, that 4 blocks covers 1.5 hour. So kung isipin po natin, since it's 1.5 hour, they're not gonna meet that specific subject every day. Like, for example, for math and science, they only meet thrice a week. and the Friday is only 45 minutes. Okay? So, why did we put the schedule this way? Since we also want to consider, because I think it's not just um, in the Philippines, but also in all over the world, in all of the countries, about mental health, how students um, piled up with the responsibilities that they have to do in school if they, if they do different subjects every day. So that's why we resorted to having only 4 blocks. Now, if you think about it, if you total all of the number of hours, it will still be the same as to the previous one, that is every day you meet the students. But the main thing here is, if we meet them 1.5 hour, we'll be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish, to finish what we need to finish, and do a little check-in with the kids as well at home. And another thing that we added to this, we have attendance check per block or subject, so that the teacher itself can monitor whether the students are there, and so we can extend help in the same way that we want to help our students as well in the Philippines. Okay, so we do attendance checks so that we know what's happening. If we don't receive um, their attendance for that specific block, or if they are not there by break or by lunch, we have to contact and we have to ask why they are absent, so that at least we can plan accordingly for those students. And so when students are learning online, so let's say this week, my students are learning online. These are the usual things that I do and that my fellow colleagues do. So as you can see here, just like what Mr. Ian mentioned a while ago, we have different technologies, right? Um, so I have here some examples. Some are mentioned already. So we have Flipgrid as well. For science teachers, you can use PhET interactive simulations, Jamboard, Edpuzzle, IXL Learning. So what we do during online learning is to plan. So before, we need to identify what to prioritize. So most of the time, when students are learning online, the strategy of the teachers is to use the online time for instruction time. So meaning that's when we introduce a topic, that's when we we go to the nitty-gritty of the lessons, and we do interactive activities. Okay? And aside from that, we have checkout activities. Based on my experience, one of a really good checkout activity that I have is a very simple Jamboard. So kung meron po kayong Google Classroom, if you're using Google Classroom po, you can have them assign a Jamboard, because while they are doing it, you can see it live if they are answering. And so with that, you can easily spot and you can easily help them if they need help. So that's just based on my experience, because I'm also teaching math. So I need to see whether they get the lesson for that day. So this Jamboard it's a very simple tool that we use, but it's very powerful. So it just really depends on how you use it, on the purpose of you using it. So, fellow teachers, I want you to think that when you do online activities, always stick to the purpose. What is it about? Because I also fell to the trap before of planning a lot. So this is what they're gonna do first, and then next, and so on. But at the end of the day, I don't really know whether I hit my target, because it's not purposeful. So we can use a lot of technologies. You can use Mentimeter, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Jamboard, all in one period or all in one class, but it still defeats the purpose. So I just want to reassure you that you don't have to be super expert in using technology. You just have to know where you want to use it. You just have to be specific onto the purpose of what you use it. If you want to have interactive activities and you're comfortable in using Jamboard, so be it. Just make sure it's purposeful. You don't have to feel the pressure of, being updated with a lot, but still you cannot implement it in class well. Better go to the one that you master already in using so that it will be purposeful. That's based on my learnings from my experience as a teacher as well. And another thing that's good, since I mentioned to you a while ago that we meet the students 1.5 hour, right? So we have the opportunity to do a brain break. So of course, it's gonna be hard for the students to stay in front of the screen for 1.5 minutes, 1.5 hours rather. So therefore, in between, at the discretion of the teachers, we give them brain break. That's also an opportunity for you to get to know your students. So we talk about, oh, what did you do last weekend? How are you today? Let's not waste these little moments, even if we are bombarded with a lot of to do things. Let us not waste this moment to get to know and feel that connection with your students, even if they are learning online. And another one is that activities are planned. So our administrators asked us to make sure that the activities are planned and designed so that students have time to work online and offline. So it means that we don't need to finish the whole 1 hour and 30 minutes. If we're done already by 30 minutes, let's just say, we have to make sure that we give an activity for the students that they can work away from the screen. Could be a simple experiment at home with just using salt, sugar, things like that. Could be a little reading that they can do with the physical copy. Okay, could be photocopy of a selection or essay, as long as it's away from the screen. Because in this way, we also help them manage their screen time. And of course, it equates to health of the students. And since this is online, I'm pretty sure you can relate with me. Sometimes, it's hard to make sure that the students are there. Hindi mo alam kung nandoon. So, especially if you only see the ceiling, right? So, for others, for my classes and for our classes, we also help the students manage their learning schedule. So we give them assessment for behaviors for distance learning. So this is an example for that. But this one, before you tell the students that, hey, I'm gonna grade you, you have to tell them first that this one is something that we want to help you with. Sometimes it's based on the framing that you want to tell to the kids so that they don't feel that, it's graded. Okay, I have to do this. It always goes back to the purpose. Why do we want to give you this rubric? Why do we still have to give you this? So that we will be accountable for our learning. Remember that one of the things that we are starting to discover as we go to the online learning is some students, they can do self-regulation of their learning. Some students are still having a hard time, and we understand that. And this is also a way for the students to reflect for themselves. What are the things that I did this week that's not so good? What are the things that I did this week that, it helped me learn? So basically, this is for them, not really for the teachers to just grade and grade. Oh, you're a 1, you're a 4. So again, purpose. And now, let's say they're already done with the week that they are online. The next week, they will be on campus. So this is what we do. When they are on campus now, for me specifically, I focus on lesson reinforcement. So the first day that I meet them when they go back to campus is my way to see whether they listen during the online lessons or they got the idea, not just really about, disciplining them, but really to see whether they get the lesson. So lesson reinforcement, this is when we do summative assessments. Um, because we all know that it's hard to collect assessments from students online. I don't know who can relate with me, but for sure you will. They submit turn in, but there's no attachment. Or they submit turn in or they click turn in, but the attachment is blank. So it's really hard. And we also don't know what is the reality of the kid at home. So only then that when we see it, when we see them face to face, that's when we will understand. So that's why lesson reinforcement when they are on campus is very important. And that's when we do group tasks and activities. So I'm sharing this with you. I have my permission for this. I asked permission. So these are some of my students. So they do some tasks here. So they still do group activities. Um, as you notice, we don't have barriers. We only have barriers in the canteen or cafeteria. But in the classroom, anywhere else, there's no barriers. As long as the students are wearing their mask, that's what's most important. And of course, proper hygiene. So that, the students, they long for connection in as much as we also long for connection. So we want them to feel that if they are in school, they are really in school. They are with their friends. So they can catch up with their friends. As long as we are vigilant in making sure that they follow safety protocols. And that's when I also do individual consultation. Because sometimes they're shy to ask. Nahihiya po yung bata na magtanong if it's online. Because they don't want to feel embarrassed. So that's when I can do individual consultation. And of course, for science teachers, that's when you can plan out for experiments. So again, these are for blended when they are online and then when they come back on campus. Now, when they are on campus, that's when we do Hyflex Learning. I hope it's still clear the difference between the two. So blended, there's a certain schedule. Online, on-site. Hyflex, when they are on-site, however, there are students who are still learning online. Just like in any other countries, the parents have the liberty to whether allow their child to go to school or not, because that's their right as a parent. So how do we deal with that? We still want to give equal opportunity. So since when they are on campus, the lessons are already designed to reinforce it from the week that they were doing online learning. The Google Meet or Zoom meeting link, it's open for the entire class block. So it will be flashed there in the projector. They can say hi to their friends who are on campus. So it's open. So we need to have, of course, your resources. You need to have your camera ready for you in the classroom. Um, and this one, since we want to make sure that they belong, they are still part of the class, and we want to give them that sense of accountability that, oh, I'm in a class even if I'm online, so I will still participate. So they are still part of the group activities. So I have your picture. These are three of my students. They're having a group activity. So my other student there is using his tablet so that they can communicate to their groupmate who are doing online. And for sure, some of you po are using Google Classroom. Some of you are using Schoology or whatever it is that you use as your LMS in school. So whatever materials we give to the students on campus, we also provided to the students who are online attendees, okay? And students are always asked to bring their devices. You might think, how will I do this if yung mga estudyante ko naman, wala naman lahat gadgets, wala naman lahat resources. So I have an answer for that, but it's not really a solution, but something to think about. I will reveal it at the end. So what is the best part of it? what is the best part of doing high flex and blended learning? On the bright side, just like what you mentioned, I saw in the comment section, you want to see your students, you feel connection, and there is interaction. It's good for your health mentally, right? Um, this pandemic, not only high flex and blended learning, makes us teachers to reflect on what skills do I need to prioritize? What is really essential? Because this one is really what we need to go about with the students. How will they use this? Again, purpose. It should be with purpose. And we are able to maximize the use of technology. And the last one, I want to emphasize this. If there's one thing that I really like about blended learning, online and on site, because we're still in the middle of the pandemic, is that it gives 1 week quarantine period for every student and teacher from the on-site learning on the previous week. I think that's why for me, since we are still in the middle of the pandemic, this is really something that I really like based on the decision of the administrators with the help of the teachers. It gives you a sense of security that, oh, I have time to isolate myself or quarantine myself for 1 week, because it's just online, so it's still for safety, so we don't forget the safety side. Again, these are my experiences and my learnings, and it's still a work in progress. It's not perfect, it's not even proven whether it's effective or not, but these are some of the challenges. Planning period, you know. um Tayo pong mga guro, sobrang sanay na tayo mag-plan. But we weren't able to plan about a long-term pandemic, right? And we are now thriving. And saludo po talaga ako sa inyong lahat. We are now planning on how we can continue learning for our students and teaching our students. And it's really the challenge, planning period. Saan ko isisingit yung pagpaplano? Saan ko ilalagay yon? How do I know which one is better? Right? So that's one of the challenges. Um, Another one is this. I think in any country, this is one of the challenge. Changes in structure. Sometimes you're okay already with the plan, and then there's new rules mandated. And then let's say there's someone who tested positive in school. So sometimes it changes, but again, we are not giving up. We focus on our goal. We focus on our purpose, which is to educate. And student motivation. Some students, they don't feel like doing it because they have some problems at home. Some students, they don't feel motivated because of personal problems. So these are some of the challenges. And that's when we come in as an educator and as their teacher. It's very important, our presence in their life as well. And of course, resources, which leads me to my last part. I want to end this by this quote or by this statement from one of the professors in Netherlands. He said, the students of the future will demand the learning support that is appropriate for their situation or context. Nothing more, nothing less. Teachers, I can go about how we do it here, but at the end of the day, you know them better. You know your situation better. And I feel like there's no specific and absolute way on how to do the high flex or blended learning, because it all rests and it all goes back to the students, to the learners. What is their situation? What is their context? You can search for a lot of materials. You can search for a lot of technologies. You can search for a lot of webinars like this to share with you more strategies. But at the end of the day, it's only you, as their teacher, as part of the school community, who will know which one is best for the students and for the whole school community. So I hope teachers, for those who's feeling anxious about it, for those who's feeling scared about it, I hope you remember that you're part of this. You're part of you're part of the whole, thriving season of making sure that learning never stops. So I hope you don't forget about that. Thank you very much.
All right. So thank you so much, Miss Maris, for sharing your wonderful experiences and best practices about blended and high flex learning setup. And the Philippine education system still has a long way to go in terms of planning and execution of the setup that you just discussed. But the things you shared will really give us, or it gave us an overview of what's to come and eventually help us prepare in the future. So before we move on to the last part of this webinar, do we have any questions from our dear audience? And if you do, comment down below your questions and we will answer them later. And while waiting for the questions to come in, I'd like to invite my classmates to share their insights and ask questions about the topic. And as usual, I'll go first. So, Miss Maris, you know what? I like what you mentioned that as we learn more about the high flex setup, us teachers don't have to be scared of using the technology. We don't have to be super expert in utilizing them. And I remember reading something from an article that says technology is not the solution to our educational problems. Rather, it's just a tool to aid and improve the learning experiences of our students. So, I guess it's really the preparation and then the teaching strategies that will matter at the end of the day. But of course, as teachers, we also have to do our part and immerse ourselves on how the technology works. So thank you, Miss Maris, for your sharing. How about the others?
Oh, Ms. Harris, thank you for sharing. And now it's clarified to all of us the difference between high flex and blended um, learning setup. So we thank you for that. And I also like the structure that you have in your country, and you also, well, Thailand would really ensure the safety of everybody. And the schedule is very organized. It's not too congested, so the kids, I mean the learners, really have the time to adjust, like for a week and then next week to prepare na naman. So there are really these are really good practices that the Philippines could hopefully adapt in our context. And you also emphasized on teachers being flexible, and I do hope that we all practice being flexible because sometimes there are things that everything is already planned out, and sometimes, well, not really some, most of the time it we experience a lot of changes, and really flexibility is something that we could all practice. So thank you for that, and for the assurance that everything is going to be fine if we start with blended and high flex learning. Thank you po, Miss Mar.
All right, with me naman, Miss Maries. Again, I want to congratulate you for sobrang hindi ko alam kung kakayanin ko siya, pero I know that we have a team right here in the Philippines, sa tong malaking team for us. So ayun, I just would like to give emphasis on what I like about the presentation, yung scheduling din, just like what Miss Lian said. Sobrang ganda ng scheduling, hindi siya congested. So that magkakaroon pa ng time yung students to think about the instructions, and then when they go to the campus, at least nandun na lang yung pagko-collaborate nila with their classmates. So nandun pa rin yung collaboration between the students. So thank you. Kasi diba, right now, while we are having the online classes more on individual work, kasi they cannot see each other then eh. So, of course, iba pa rin yung with interaction with their teacher, interaction with their classmates. So, thank you, Miss Marius.
Welcome.
Ako naman, Miss Maris, again, thank you for your talk, and from your insights, facts, and experiences, I realized that high flex learning could be tough when it's implemented here in the Philippines, because an institution would need a lot of resources in order to conduct it properly. But I think if it's done properly, it would be beneficial, convenient, and efficient for the learning of the students. And also, I would just like to emphasize on your talk about the planning, because it's really important for us teachers to plan ahead, because it would make the learning process of the students purposeful po. Thank you again for the sharing of your experiences with us, Ms. Maris.
Well, if I may, and thank you so much, Miss Maris, for sharing, your experience, and hopefully we can also apply it here in our respective schools in the Philippines. So I really would like to emphasize the idea of doing this high flex learning and teaching for our students is really a work in progress. No, so basically we really need to reassess and check from time to time what are the different needs of the students and the teachers as well, for us to be able to deliver new learnings and yung to meet the objectives of the class. So always, no, as teachers, try to contribute, try to observe and suggest, no, ideas for the school to continuously improve po. So thank you so much again, Miss Maris, for sharing. Thank you.
Ako naman, medyo more on question kay Miss Maris. Ako concerned ako talaga dito. I'd like to ask you, ma'am, if you're going to, since maraming teachers pa din ang like thinking about Hyflex and how they're going to execute it, ano yung kumbaga immediate tools that they need to acquire in their classrooms to be able to pass as Hyflex learning implementation? That's one. Ma'am, hold ko yung sunod kong question. So, yun po.
Okay. Um, for us, I think basic tools, of course, one speaker, Wi-Fi. So you need to have your Wi-Fi. So hopefully po maayos po yung internet natin if we're gonna implement Hyflex learning. So speaker kasi the students who are learning online will be part of the discussion. So you can ask them so that they still know that, oh, I have to listen, I should not, do other things even if I'm doing online learning. And then camera. So before po, around, yeah, when we started it, we have the same camera that I'm using now. This is the camera that we were using before. And then recently they suggested to use AI camera, the one that moves po kapag naglalakad kayo para makasunod yung mga bata. Pero of course, whatever the camera that we're using, we can do it. We can adjust to it. So what we do, like for me, when I need to show something, so I just make sure that the camera is facing me. I just make sure that the camera also is facing the board. Or sometimes for the others po, no, if you have like another device, especially if in math, like for me po, I use my other device and then I share in, let's say, in Google Meet or Zoom, and that's where I write so that it will be clearer for the students who are learning online, and it's also projected on screen. So ano po ibig sabihin nun? So for example, I have a Google Meet, I join using the school computer or my laptop, and I also join using my other device or tablet, which I can use to write on, so that I can just share my screen and project it as well in the classroom. And that's where I write, computation and all those things. But again, remember po, the last one that I shared, it's always based on your context and the reality of your students, right? So for sure there will be some people who will have a hard time on it. So that's when we go about it. So like you can add supplementary materials and um, share it in Google Classroom so that in case they weren't able to hear you clearly during class, we really need to put an extra effort or extra, extra hours of planning for that. Like for me, I have an experience po that one of my students has don't have internet connection at home because there's blackout in their village, so they're only using hotspot, so it's not gonna suffice for the entire of the whole day of joining online. So what I did is to record myself teaching the topic. So it's really case to case basis, and it's really based on your context, what your school can provide, what your students can also have at home, so that they can still be upbeat to the learning, whatever it is that they're learning in class. So yun po yung mga resources. If you have, then go. If we don't have, then we stick to whatever we have. We work around it. For sure, we will find a way on how we deal with it.
Sobrang interested talaga ako. Follow-up question, ma'am. So, during a high flex setup, ang students ba at home tsaka students sa school pwede rin mag-interact
Yes
during the
po.
same session?
Yes po. So what I do is I ask the students who's on campus to always bring their devices, so
Okay.
that they can easily join the Google Meet or Zoom link, so that when we have, like for example, group activities, I can put them in breakout rooms
Okay.
so they can still talk
Pwedeng
to
from
the students who
devices.
are doing online, which is actually fun for some of the students, because some of the students, they feel like they're missing out. So, oh, I miss you. I want to go to school as well. And then, so yeah, it puts pressure on the side of the parents who don't want to allow them to come to school. So, those are just some of the situations po.
Thank you, Miss Maris. Ang dami kong tanong pero dami kong natutunan, and I can imagine no kung gaano ninyo talaga kumbaga pinaghihirapan yung execution ninyo. I mean like the efforts na ginagawa ninyo balancing both students at home and in class.
Trying, sir. Trying my best. It's not perfect, but yeah, trying your best for the kids.
Ayun, thank you po, Miss Maris.
All right. So thank you so much, classmates and Miss Maris, for the great insights and realizations. So now let us take a look at the comment section and try to answer the questions coming from our participants. I actually got three questions here. Oh, we got four. So let's have the first one. So we have a question from Joray Mar. So he's asking, may we know how this would work for students with ADHD, students who are under the PWD group?
Oh, for our school po kasi, and from what I know as well, for students who have conditions, or who have ADHD or who are PWDs, first, it has to be allowed by their parents, of course. And second, there has to be adjustment in terms of the room, saan sila lalagay, in terms of saan lang sila pwede mag-move around, so that, there's not much shared space with the other students who have more mobility than them. So basically, it's an adjustment in terms of um, the logistics. So if we have students who have special needs, so well, for us, we have students who are diagnosed with such needs, and the thing is, we have, like, let's say, teaching assistant, so we have an extra help from other teachers. But for me, I think it will be really good to, arrange a specific logistic for them, like which room to use, so that, it's not going to be hard for them. So yeah, and what specific tools you can have there, so that it's still accessible to the students, to the special students who are joining on site and who are joining online. So I'm not an expert of this, but that is just my thing about that.
All right. So thank you so much, Miss Maris, for answering that question. And we hope that we answered your question, Jory Mar. So if you have follow-up questions or clarificatory questions, just let us know through the chat panel. So let's have one more question before we move on to the last stretch of our webinar. So we have a question here. During Hyflex session, do you use smartboard in your classroom, or a simple whiteboard and projector will do?
You know what? The good news is a simple whiteboard and projector will do. As long as first it should be clear, like the ink of the whiteboard, as simple as that, as minute ideas as that, or things like that. So it has to be clear. The lighting should not be, reflecting, and so that the students who are learning online can still see it. That's what I do po before. When before I was able to figure out, oh, I can join using Google Meet and then share my screen. Before I was able to figure out that, I was sharing and I was projecting and I'm writing there on whiteboard and the camera is just faced on the whiteboard so that the student can follow. So yeah, and what I do is just I make sure that I have a draft post in Google Classroom already so that by the time that I ask my students to work on it who are on site, the one who's online will also do it at the same time and not in advance. So there's already a prepared draft posting. And for math, I usually use Jamboard so that I can see it real time. Oh, this is what he's writing. Okay, he's solving this one. I can see that he's stuck. So yeah, just basically working around the tools that you have po. It doesn't have to be really super, high tech technology. So whatever you have, we can work around it.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Maris. So we have one more question, like a pahabol question from Godi Ditan. So she's asking, is group activity allowed, or was it possible in your school during Hyflex considering health protocols?
Um, the group activities are allowed. So the students are not limited to move. But to make sure that we follow health protocols, we open the windows or we open whatever sliding door we have, or sometimes we work outside so that it's an open space. So group activities is allowed po as long as students are wearing their mask properly when they talk to each other, not too close, but there's still a certain distance. And again, I think one of the reason why students and parents are also confident because we have ATK testing and they do it we do it twice a week. So Sunday night and Wednesday morning so students and parents are at ease that it's negative. So and we inform them, let's say for example someone tested positive and so it's going to be online, things like that. So that's how it changes. That's how fast it changes whenever there are some cases in school, and we have instances like that. You cannot avoid it, but again, we work around with it. At the end of the day, we are still serving our purpose, which is to educate them. But yeah, it's allowed. Group activity is allowed. You just have to make sure there's ventilation, proper ventilation po.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Maris. And one last question, as requested by our participant. We know that we already extended, but might as well ask the questions while you're here, right? So the last question for today: were all subjects in your curriculum given during implementation of HyFlex from Godi Dita?
Yes po. So we still have same lineup of subjects. So we still have math, science, we still have English, we still have social studies, we still have Thai classes, we still have Chinese classes, we still have computer classes. But the thing is po kasi, right, in the Philippines po, computer, um, TLE subjects, all of them should really take it. The thing po kasi, our structure, students choose. It's an elective. So some students can go to computer classes, some students can go to design, Some students can go to other activities. So that's elective. Some students can go to Chinese class. So that's the thing. That's why it was able to fit into that type of schedule because it's elective. It's not like as in 8 subjects per day. It's not like that. Some subjects, like the core subjects, that's the one. But the elective, that's when different students have different subjects po. So, but yeah.
All right. So I hope that Miss Maris answered your question, Godi, Deetan. So thank you so much. And that wraps up our discussion on online classroom management and Hyflex learning today. We know that you still have a lot of questions, and we'll try to answer that probably in our next session, or if you have an opportunity to visit our resource site, you can paste your question there, and we'll try our best to still answer those questions. So, we would like to again express our gratitude to our speakers for their valuable contribution in this webinar. So, may we call on our professor, Dr. Jasper Alantaga, to join us in the awarding of certificates to our dear speakers? Okay, hello, Sir Jasper. So, we're going to flash the certificates in a bit. All right. So, I think the certificates are already flashed. So we have first the certificate of appreciation is awarded to Mr. Ian Mark Arevalo for his invaluable contribution as a resource speaker during the webinar titled Into the Future from Bichronous Online Learning to Hyflex Learning, given this on the 12th of February 2002, signed by Dr. Jasper Vincent Alantaga, Director of Academic Support for Instructional Services and Technology, and Mr. Adrian Cruz, EdTech Consultant and Coach of Look Beyond and Digital Learning Solutions. Right. So of course we are also would like to, or we would also like to appreciate Miss Maris. So we are giving this certificate of appreciation awarded to Miss Maris Gamban Ortega for her invaluable contribution as a resource speaker during the webinar titled "Into the Future: From Bichronous Online Learning to Hyflex Learning," giving this on the 12th of February 2002, signed by Dr. Jasper Vincent Alantaga and Mr. Adrian Cruz. Yay! So, of course, we don't want to miss this precious opportunity. We'd like to treasure this moment and have a little souvenir. So, maybe request Sir Ian and Miss Maris for a photo op with Sir Jasper.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, classmates, can someone capture this for us? Thank you. One, two, three, smile. Okay. All right. So, captured by Axel. Thank you, Axel. So again, thank you, Miss Ian and Sir Ian rather, and Miss Maris. Of course, this doesn't end here. We'd like to make this initiative a sustainable one and hopefully form a community of educators who are willing to continue sharing with one another. So, with that being said, let us now have Miss Patricia Valderrama, one of our classmates, to share with us the resource site as well as the evaluation form for this webinar.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Of course, we are delighted to share with you our relevant and useful resources that we have gathered and curated especially for you or educators. And of course, please feel free to browse our Google site. As you can see, in our presentation, we have here the link. So it's under sites that google.com/dlsu.edu.ph /into the future and home. In that site, you will be able to see some tutorial videos on how to use online platforms and what are the other video and multimedia editing tools that you can use, of course, as a teacher. And you can also read some articles pertaining to Hyflex Learning, and you'll get to know more about us as well. And lastly, this will be our discussion board wherein we can continuously communicate and share our best practices when it comes to conducting online classes or utilizing different edtech tools that we have been using for our classes. So, yeah, feel free to navigate and use that site po. And then, of course, we'll be updating that site from then on in case that we will be able to identify some new platforms as well. And then, of course, for the evaluation form or for your certificates, please do help us evaluate our program first. And then, right after submitting the evaluation form, you will be able to receive your certificate within a minute or so. So, yeah, thank you so much po for attending our activity, and we all hope to see you soon in our other upcoming activities. Salamat po.
Thank you, Miss Patty. And again, of course, we'd like to get your feedback. So please do answer the evaluation form, and you will get your certificates right after. And to conclude this session or to wrap up this session, on behalf of our team, we would like to thank Brother Andrew Gonzalez, FSC College of Education, De La Salle University, Manila, as well as Look Beyond Digital Solutions. We would also like to thank our professor, Dr. Jasper Vincent Alantaga, for his unending guidance and support for us graduate students. And last but not the least, our sincerest gratitude to Mr. Ian Arevalo and Miss Maris Ortega for your dedication and willingness to share your knowledge and experiences with us today. So, hearts to you guys. And also, we could have done this event successfully with our lovely audience. So, shout out to our participants from all over the Philippines. And if we have participants outside, kudos to you guys.
Thank you
And
very much, teachers.
Mm-hmm. And also, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we hope that the things you learned here will help improve the learning experiences of your students. And just a reminder, as educators, we continue to follow the footsteps of our patron saint, John Baptist de la Salle, and the greatest teacher, Almighty God. Again, this is Dave Tabisala, your MC, and this is Into the Future, from Bichronous Online Learning to Hyflex Learning. That concludes our webinar. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.